1 BC, 3894 AM. The Qumran texts, known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, record that in this year a comet appeared in conjunction with a planetary conjunction in Pisces. Because no comet appeared in 2 BC, some believe that the Magi followed the comet in accordance with a prophecy of Zoroaster. In this year, King Herod fell ill and died. Riots in Jerusalem caused Roman governor Archaix to send troops into Jerusalem, and 3,000 people, mostly Jews, were killed in the temple precinct. A partial eclipse occurred on December 29th, almost 3 months before Passover. Herod died about a month after this partial eclipse. The date provided for in Jewish Megillat Ta'anith, written over 20 years later, a date equal to the Julian January 14th. This comet had returned after 984 years, last seen in 985 BC, a long-period comet. In this year, according to mathematicians who estimated that the whole world's population died off at about 2300 BC, Great Flood, there would have been approximately 300 million people alive on the planet at 1 BC, assuming the world was reduced to only 8 members about 2300 BC. In calendrics, this year was important because it was 930 years after Israel and Judah split into the divided kingdom in 931 BC. This was also 744 years since the 10 tribes of Israel in 745 BC were deported by the Assyrians. This year was 960 years after 961 BC, when the temple was finished by Solomon, Jedediah, and it was 880 years after Samaria was built in Israel in 881 BC. Finally, this was the 720th year since the last of the Israelites were deported in 721 BC by Assyria. 1. Our Haunted Planet. 2. History of the Christian religion to the year 200. 3. Time and the Bible's number code. 4. Evolution Cruncher. Anno Domini calendar. At this time, the Anno Domini calendars did not exist. This calendar separating history between BC, before Christ, and AD, Anno Domini, Year of the Lord, was designed by Dionysius Exiguus in the year 527 AD as a Roman calendar marking the year 1 as the year Christ was born, which Exiguus was of the opinion that Christ was born in the 754th year of Rome. He was off by 2 years. Christ was born in 2 BC. For the first 526 years of the AD calendar, it did not exist, being an entirely retroactively imposed system. There are so many amazing parallels between BC and AD dates concerning events that mirror one another that we are led to conclude that the Anno Domini system was inspired. The BC AD calendrical continuum is best understood when seen paralleled with the unbroken Annus Mundi chronology. 4 BC, 3891 AM. 3 BC, 3892 AM. 2 BC, 3893 AM. 1 BC, 3894 AM. 1 AD, 3895 AM. 2 AD, 3896 AM. 3 AD, 3897 AM. 4 AD, 3898 AM. 1 AD, 3895 AM. It is not without significance that in this year the Roman Emperor Augustus ordered the destruction of over 2,000 volumes of the Greek prophecies, an apparent attempt to forget the future. Much of what the Greeks knew was from the earlier Ionian sages, who were closer in succession from their ancient Israelite forebears. The Apocalypse, known as the Book of Revelation, was among those ancient Greek preserved writings on the future that was not destroyed, a text masked in later Christian garb. C. 96 AD. Another interesting fact about this year as the joint between the BC and AD timelines is the fact that Abraham was born in 1948 Annus Mundi, 1947 BC, and his descendants founded Israel. These descendants regathered in their ancient homeland in 1948 Anno Domini, when Israel became a state independent of foreign rule as per United Nations mandate. 1. Elder Gods in Antiquity. 6 AD, 3900 AM. A full-scale Roman invasion into German territory was thwarted when sudden uprisings occurred in Roman-occupied Pannonia and Dalmatia. The census of Rome occurred in Judea and Rome's eastern holdings, which in these regions was overseen by the governor of Syria named Quirinius. The census was very unpopular, and Judas of Galilee led an uprising against the Romans, supported by the feared Jewish assassins called the CHRONICON, dagger men. This same Judas of Galilee is mentioned in the biblical book of Acts 5:37. 9 AD, 3903 AM. The Romans under General Varus attempted to invade Germania, but a Saxon chieftain formerly loyal to Rome, who had been trained by the Romans named Hermann of Germany, Arminius in Latin, united the German forces and ambushed 3 full Roman legions in the famous Battle of Teutoburg Forest. About 15,000 Romans were defeated and then killed in a series of hit-and-run attacks. The Rhine River became the boundary between Roman-controlled domains and those of the Germans. The Germans were descendants of the Cimmerians, the Scythian Gimri and Assyrian Bit Cumri, House of Omri, all names of migrating Israelites. This year was 753 years since the Israelites were deported in 745 BC by Assyria, the year 753 BC being the founding of Rome. This was 400 years after the Gauls, kin to Germans, sacked Rome and occupied it in 390 BC. 1. Tracing our ancestors. 2. A History of Civilization, Volume 1. 3. March of the Titans.